Good morning. How are we doing today? My name is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit. Welcome back to another video. And today we're going to run through the SPR section of the Postflop workbook, and we're going to start first with a simple EV situation, and then in the next video we're going to talk about an advanced EV situation. So for this first one, let's start with page 131 and rock and roll. Alright, so beginning with the prompt up above, with blinds at 501k in a tournament, they open raise to 2.5k, you 3-bet to 6k total, they 4-bet to 13k total, and you are the only caller. So that's the situation we're in right here. On the flop, they pause for a moment and decide to go all in for their remaining 40k. You suspect they're shoving most of their 4-betting range, which includes overpairs, middle pair combos, and overcards that they do not want to check fold. And this is kind of the overall range they got to the street with, and then from here we'll suss out what they shoved, and we'll show you how to do that in Flopzilla in a moment. And then down below, we just need to add our equity and then fill in the variables for the basic EV equation. And we can also use the basic EV spreadsheet. If you don't already have this, I'll leave a link for it down below. But ultimately, we're solving for the EV of calling this shove in a 1.5 SPR pot. So without further ado, let's set it up in Flopzilla and go from there. Alright, so let's start by plugging in all the information. So our hand, ace of diamonds, king of spades. The board is the 10 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds, 6 of clubs, and we can grab our opponent's range from the answer key, page 131, copy, paste, enter, and there we go. And then from here, we need to factor in the range that they're shoving with. So this isn't the entire range that they're shoving with right this moment, right? Because we think they're only going to go all in with certain things. So let's start by getting rid of everything and then go from there. So we think that they're going to shove with what? Their overpairs. Okay. I think they're going to shove with their middle pair combos. Okay. I think they're going to shove with overcards that they don't want to check fold. Okay, perfect. So when you're going through this section, make sure to take your time reading this. Sometimes it's going to be the entire range you see on the right. Other times it's going to be like this, where it's a subsection of that. And it's very, very specific. So if it says overpairs plus, that include overpairs and sets as well. This one doesn't say that, which means we think they're probably going to slow play sets. So they're going to check either some of them or all of them. In this exact situation, the assumption is that they're going to check all of them, and this is where we are. So when you're in here and you've built out their entire range and also any subsets they're in, don't take the equity here until you've marked this as green. And what the green does is say, okay, we're only going to factor in the included filters that we've selected. It's not going to include everything. If you have this in red, this equity is against the entire range. When you have this in green, this is the equity against the range that you've selected in here, in this case, the shoving range on the flop. And you notice that our equity right here is 45.8, round that up to 46%. Excellent. And now let's start filling out the variables down below in the EV equation. So for the basic EV equation, there are only a few variables that we need to fill in. That's percentage W, money W, percentage L, and money L. If you have no idea what these things stand for, I'll leave a link down below for more information on the basic EV equation. But essentially, percentage W is your equity in this hand, so how often you suspect you're going to win. We just filled that out with our equity, so that's 46%. If we know if we know percentage W, then we always know percentage L. This is how often we win, this is how often we lose. We know both of those numbers are always going to equal 100%, so 100 minus 46 gets us to 54%. Okie dokie. And then we need how much we win and how much we lose. So when we call and we win, since they have the effective stack at 40k, pull up a calculator real quick, even though this is pretty basic math, we would win their $40,000 plus the 27.5 that is already in the middle. That gets us to 67.5k. And then when we call and we lose, the money in the middle doesn't affect us anymore. That belongs to the pot at that point. So the only thing we can lose by calling here is an additional 40k, since that's what we would be calling. And then we can just throw all of that into an EV calculator and rock and roll. So we don't need the advanced one. The basic one will do just fine. If we plug everything in, money W is 67,500. Money L is 40,000. percentage W is that 46 that we did earlier, and this auto completes at 100 minus that and gets us to the same 54 we had, and that gets us to positive 9,450. Excellent. And if we check the answer key real quick just to make sure, page 131, scroll over, 46% equity, yes. EV of calling, yes. And if you scroll to the right just a little bit further, you see the shoving math, just so you can see exactly what the input variables were. If you ever get stuck, you're like, where the heck did that number come from? Always start there. That can be very, very helpful. But this is how you complete the basic EV calculations in the SPR chapter. It's the same one for all of the ones that use this exact layout. Take your time with it. If you get an answer that doesn't match up, chances are it's going to be an equity difference. Again, make sure you take your time in Flopzilla, set up the problem properly. Be the same thing if you're setting up your own problem in Flopzilla, right? You're trying to study out your own hand. You got to make sure you put the inputs in properly, and then you can go from there. And some of this is helpful even just going a step further, because essentially what we said is, okay, we think they're going to be shoving 62.5% of the time. Well, that's pretty good. That also means they're checking, give or take, about a third of the time, which is good information to know. And also, if you're in here and you're like, well, I don't think my opponents are really for-betting this kind of range pre-flop. Okay, no problem. Take a moment as well and say, okay, well, what if they had a much tighter range of hands, right? What if instead of having this stuff, they were mostly up here? Maybe you thought this was their 4-betting range for whatever reason. You thought they were still going to shove that exact same thing. You could go in and run the math the exact same way. Or maybe you thought they were going to shove tighter, right? You thought they were only really going to shove with overpairs for whatever reason, right? Then you're going to have a different equity, and then you can just come through. And this is the fun thing about having the calculator up, is all you have to do is just make some slight tweaks, right? The money W is going to be the exact same. Money L going to be the exact same. But how often you win in this exact situation, right? You suspect your equity here is going to be 23% instead. What does that look like? Well, all of a sudden that's a really, really trashy call. So it can really, really help you kind of look at the actual exercise from the workbook itself and then expand it a little bit further if you want to take a more well-rounded look at a singular spot. So again, hopefully that helps. If you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, as always, good luck out there and happy grinding.